The GallowgateShots podcast is sponsored by Tyre Spot, the North East's leading tyre supplier with branches across the region. Tyre Spot don't just do tyres, they cover everything from servicing to wheel alignment. They can handle every aspect of your car's maintenance. For more information, visit tyrespot.co.uk. Enjoy the episode.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the GallowgateShots YouTube and podcast channel. We are back with another match preview. This week we draw our attention towards the Leicester City away game. I'm Scott, I'm your host for this one, and this week I'm joined by Daryl and Andy. Boys, are we over talking about that final yet, or can we still talk about it?
Hang on, no.
He is. For the audio listeners, yet again, Daryl, he's pointing at a picture.
We can talk about Tonali's goal again if you'd rather.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about Tonali's goal. No, I think just for the sake of listeners expecting a match preview, let's talk a little bit about the match first. The match preview that's coming up, and then maybe his little spoiler alert. I'll probably talk about the final and all the other good stuff that's been happening, but we'll see what happens. But yes, this is the match preview for Leicester City, Leicestershire, however you wanted to pronounce it, depending on where you are in the world. But yeah, it's Monday, the 7th of April. It's an 8 p.m. kickoff at the King Power Stadium, and it's live on Sky. Leicester, I mean, maybe they're not doing too well at all, are they? Sorry, Leicester fans, but since we last played you, you've had a bit of a downer. You're 19th in the league on 17 points, 4 wins, 5 draws, and 21 defeats. You've scored 25 and you've conceded 67. That's a minus 42 goal difference for anybody wanting to keep track of those maths. And I've got some stats, and I've got a hell of a stat for this one, which I've plucked out of the ether. I don't know where this one's come from, but there's a hell of a record to be. It's not even broken. It's to be created.
The one you don't want to create is well, isn't it?
You don't want to create this one. We'll come to it in a minute. But yeah, after winning 9 of their 12 Premier League meetings with Newcastle between May 2015 and December 2021, and only losing 3, Leicester are now winless in their last 4. Newcastle have kept a clean sheet in each of their last 3 Premier League meetings with Leicester, more than they had in their previous 16 against the Foxes, which was only 2. And this is the doozy. And I'm sorry, Leicester fans, if you're watching this, but you might not know this, but you'll want to at least get a goal at the weekend on Monday. But here we go. Leicester have lost each of their last 7 home Premier League matches, failing to score in every single one of them. Should Leicester lose the game on Monday and not score, they will become the first side in Football League history to lose 8 home league games in a row without scoring.
Ouch.
Let's hope. I don't know. Let's hope you can at least get a goal. We don't want you to win, but let's hope.
That's incredible. That's
a horrible history. That's a horrible record to put in history. And finally, from the stats side, Newcastle have won 7 away Premier League matches so far this season, and could win 8 on the road for a second time under Eddie Howe, and it will be 8+ because we've got some more away games to come as well. He also obviously got 8 in 2022 to 2023. We've only done so 3 times before Howe. That was 9 in 93 to 94 under Keegan, 9 in 2001 to 2002 under Robson, and 8 in 2011 2012 under one Alan Pardew. So there you go. There's the stats on the board. Let's talk a little bit about Leicester. Andy, since they went on that little run after Van Nistelrooy was appointed, and we all thought they've turned a corner. They played us. We kind of did them over 4-0 at St. James's. Things haven't been going their way, have they?
No, you call it a run. It was a bit of a 5-yard dash, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I actually thought Steve Cooper was a good appointment. I thought, obviously, on reflection, it was a great decision by Forest to get rid of him. But I thought he was actually, I know the Forest fans loved him. He was adored there, and he's gone to effectively a regional rival. And I thought, it's one of those where, can he do it? Is his heart going to be in it? And I thought he did all right to start the season. They looked all right. Obviously, it's so hard for promoted teams to do anything, stay up for 1 year, never mind keep it sustained. I mean, Leicester, who have won the Premier League and FA Cup in our recent memory, and they were a really, really good championship team, and they've just been trounced by everyone. It's crazy, really. But like you said, they got rid of Cooper, which they probably did need to be fair. Should have done it a lot earlier. They then beat West Ham, and then drew with Brighton. And you thought, right, this is a little resurgence, but that new manager bounce, and then they came to our place and we immediately stuffed them 4-0. And since that point, I mean, if anyone just opens flash scores and looks, it's just a sea of red. There is no joy in there whatsoever, apart from when they beat Spurs, which is just hilarious and says a lot about Spurs in the season they're having. So it's just one of them. I think they've shown little glimpses here and there. They're fortunate that Southampton are as bad as they are, because they could easily be rock bottom this season. But even Ipswich have shown a lot more fight than Leicester have, and they've got a much weaker squad. They've shown a bit of intent, a real style of play, really trying to actually score goals and attack. Whereas with Leicester, I mean, a Leicester fan will know better than me, but it just seems like they've just not really protected that squad they had that did so well. They're still relying on a couple of the old heads, and then young lads. There's no kind of middle ground with them. So when you're still relying on Vardy as your main guy to play 90 minutes every game, you're going to be struggling. So on that note, we'll probably lose 1-0 now. But they are struggling, bless them.
Yeah, it's going to be a weird one from our side, Daryl, because these are the type of games where we've been our own worst enemy, where the players just think they can turn up, they don't have to put the effort in, and they'll get a result. And we've seen time and time again, I'm thinking of Fulham, both games this season. There's other examples as well, but we can't afford to do that given what's at stake.
Yeah, you're completely right. Complacency is our worst enemy, really, and we have been a little bit inconsistent recently. But I think the big acid test for that was the Brentford game, which was on Wednesday night this week. The momentum was high. Everybody was really confident, really happy, given everything that happened down the road at Wembley. There's your first mention of the cup final, and I think second even, yeah. So going into Wednesday's game, I think everybody would have had a little bit of apprehension about what will happen if we're still hungover from the cup final, and there was periods in the game where you thought, oh God, is it going to happen? And then obviously Sandro Tonali came up with a peach of a goal. And it really put everybody at ease. And I think, again, we're going to need to have a similar approach on Monday night. We're going to have to be professional about it. We're going to have to be diligent in our work. We're going to have to focus. And much like the game at home at St James's, we're going to have to be, professional and see them off. If we're going to win the game, we're going to have to do it, and we're going to have to do it well, because no Premier League game is easy. And even though Leicester are on the run that they're on and they've been absolutely dire, there's always that chance in the Premier League that a team will come into a game and suddenly be able to shock a team, especially if it's not focused and ready on the task at hand.
Absolutely. I mean, you just need to look last season, Andy, at the Luton fixture, where we thought we'd go there and be a walkover, and they ended up doing us over 1-0. I mean, you cannot take anything for granted in this league. And, I'm not comparing Leicester to Luton. I think they're two completely different sides in terms of the personnel on the pitch. But you talk about the team newly promoted, where they were in the league at the time. There's a lot of comparisons to draw there, and we can't afford to just turn up. I've obviously mentioned that just to Daryl there, but you've got to think Leicester's bad run has to come to an end at some point. You'd hope it would. You just kind of hope it doesn't come against us.
Well, you say that, but that just reminds me of that Mick McCarthy clip where it's like, this can't go on, can it? It can. Which is probably how the Leicester fans would react to it. But no, I take your point completely. I know Eddie Howe says it as a bit of a cliche every week. There's no easy games. You've got to prepare the same way for each game, blah, blah, blah. And it is true, but at the same time, you're looking at the results they've got, the stat you mentioned before about not scoring at home and things like that. There's not many games where I expect us to win, but I really do expect us to win this one. We weren't great against Brentford, but they're a really tricky customer, Brentford. They go really direct. I thought Sharda was really good. And obviously teams that go direct and in behind with pace, we do struggle with. I don't think Leicester can necessarily do that. I quite like that El Canoes that plays for them. He looks like a tidy footballer. But if you've got one tidy footballer and everything around you is a shower of shit, it's a bit like when we had Ben Arthur and St Maximin, isn't it? It doesn't really work. So, but it's been a criticism leveled at Howe. It's one of the only criticisms I've had of him in that earlier part of the season, where it felt like the players and maybe also the management were maybe taking their eye off the ball slightly for these games. Because, we've got this sort of run to the season where we're looking at that Chelsea game and that Villa game, and it's like, right, that's where those Champions League places are won or lost. But we've still got to then beat Leicester. We've still got to then beat these other teams, Crystal Palace.
Yep.
So it's just about being professional and controlling the game. Because there was times during that Brentford game where I was not comfortable. I would start swinging on my chair, getting ADHD tendencies everywhere, stressing out about that game. We just need to not have any of those moments against Leicester.
Yeah.
Nice, positive start, get a goal, and just control it, and we should do fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
get out
absolutely.
there and hit them quick and get an early goal, and I think we'll be absolutely fine.
And Man City did it in the last game, scored in 2 minutes. Man City fans weren't even in the ground because they were protesting.
They were, weren't they? But that's the thing, Daryl. I mean, we have it in us to get early goals. A lot of recent games, we've had to have one disallowed before we can score the first one. So maybe that's the trend that we're going for now. But I think we have the pace in that squad, even with some personnel out. Mm-hmm. The replacements we've got are equally as pacey up going forward, at least. At the back's probably another question, but the midfield, the wingers, obviously the striker, we all know, all have a bit of pace, and that's probably where we can hurt Leicester. On the attack, and you'd expect Leicester to maybe not be all guns blazing in terms of an attack towards us, but they're going to probably sit deep, similar to what Brentford have done against us at home. But you just don't think they've got the same quality when it comes to that defence, and that's probably where they've conceded that, 65 goals or something this season, I mentioned. It's a big deficit to have. Even at this point in the season, like there's still 9 games to go. You can't be expecting those figures really for Premier League football.
Yeah, it's a run of figures and that's going to surely see them, unfortunately, for their supporters and their fans and everybody associated with their club. Unfortunately, it's going to lead to them being relegated. I don't think there's any, denying that. And you mentioned the pace and that they have a bit of pace up front. I mean, Vardy, we were talking about before we started recording, Vardy's legs aren't what they used to be, but you can still have a bit of a burst here and there. And Canusa is quite quick when he attacks. So our back line is known for distinct lack of pace, especially in the middle. So we'll have to be on the ball in that respect to be able to manage that. And I think our speed in transition and being able to turn over the ball and start an attack off is going to be key in this. And if Leicester are going to play this low block, then we need to be patient. We need to be focused in how we move the ball around the pitch so that we can't get caught.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk a little bit about our team, Andy. Obviously, Eddie Howe's mentioned in the press conference today. There's still a few players who are, last minute, going to assess them today. We saw Joe Linton go off. Did he go off? He went down against Brentford. I can't remember if he actually went off or not, but he had a very heavily strapped knee from what I saw on the TV, and he kind of went down a couple of times with that. You had Isak go off, who apparently had a small twinge in his groin. You had Trippier as well, who seemed to be, limping around. So we've got a few players who are maybe borderline and maybe touch and go for this one. So it could be a slightly different lineup going into this Monday night game. Hopefully we've had enough rest though, because we've got a few days.
Yeah, the fixtures have fell quite nicely. I think you not mentioned it on the reaction, didn't you, about how the fixtures have lined up quite nice in terms of rest and things. I think we're just getting to that point of the season where people's legs start to go. It's when you see those older players like Trippier, all respect to him, he's still a million times fitter than any of us are. No offense to you, lovely lads, but he's getting to that age. In footballers' terms, he's on the verge of retirement, isn't he? So it's like gets to that point in the season where I know players and coaches complain about it, but these lads do put in some ridiculous miles into the legs every year, and it gets to this point where you start fatiguing, muscles start cramping up, you get little pains that you've never really felt before, and players just have to be careful. We know we're not blessed with a big squad, so if someone like Isak, when we're winning the game, feels something, he's got to say it to the boss, look, bring me off, I'm not 100%, because if someone pulls a groin or does a hamstring and we get into the Champions League, then they're suddenly not playing, and the whole thing's a pointless exercise, isn't it? So I think it's just about being careful. I do feel sorry for Howe, because he looks at his bench and he's having to put lads on there who are, he's putting on there, but through the academy, we don't have anyone else. So I do feel sorry for him, because he's got to trust the lads he's putting on, and I don't think he necessarily does. I think there's only one or two that he really trusts, like people like Kraft, and I think he trusts Wilson, but I thought he was a bit naff against Brentford. I don't think he really did the job he was brought on to do. I don't know if you lads agree. He was just kind of floating around the pitch. He didn't really get stuck in. He didn't really hold the ball up.
Yeah.
Got a bit greedy on a couple of chances, which I don't blame him for because he's a striker. But I'm just not that confident in the bench options. So we just need to. Well, it goes back to what we said. It's about having a quick start, getting in control of the game, so you can make those earlier subs, and then you move on to the next one. But I think it's just an Eddie Howism that he says always touch and go, but really Trippier's probably doing full sprints and slide tackles in training.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about Wilson. It's almost like he's playing like he already knows he's off, and he's done his bit, and he's just now there to make up the numbers. Almost.
When he was actually genuinely pushing Isak, it was great because they were obviously Isak. We all knew he was the better player, but they were both genuinely really competing and pushing each other. Whereas now, I think Wilson. I mean, it may be not fair to him because he's been a great pro for us, but he maybe is just like, I can't really do it anymore, and he's genuinely been through another injury. I mean, his legs are bloody cheese strings at the minute, poor lad.
Yeah, I mean, falling down those steps, getting off the plane didn't have help either. Obviously, Andy's talked about Kieran Trippier, but what a resurgence he's had as well in terms of his performances. He's arguably playing the best football he's played for since he's arrived. I mean, these past weeks, we all thought when Lewis Hall was announced to be out for the end of the season, would be struggling on that left-hand side, but we've moved Livramento over, who has also been outstanding on that left-hand side, but Trippier's stepped up to the plate and reclaimed that position almost as his own. And obviously he is a right back, so it is his own position, but he's taken that spot and it's like, you want this back, you're gonna have to win it off me because I'm putting in these performances like I'm, back in me, mid to late 20s and, come get it almost.
Yeah, he put in some fantastic challenges against Brentford during the week there, and it's probably more than anything, it's the sign of his true professionalism that he's been able to come in relatively out the cold because Tino had cemented that place on the right for himself, and it's only by chance that we have the flexibility within Tino himself to be able to put him to left back. And to be honest, has he really put a foot wrong while he's been over there? Can't say he has. And then obviously you've got Trippier coming in and being like just this true professional and getting on with his job and doing things well. It's the simple things doing well. It's a very easy way of playing football, and obviously
when he's apparently had some personal issues as well, and he's
exactly
so maybe affected him initially, but
so he's been able to leave everything off the field, so to speak, and it hasn't really affected his performances since he's come back in the squad. And again, one of our experienced heads as well, so he's got all that in his locker. And I quite like seeing him there because he's a little bit more of a creative outlet for his crosses and his set pieces. Not that we've really won many set pieces in dangerous positions around the edge of the box recently, I would say. But it was nice to see him on the corners on Wednesday, putting the balls in, and obviously had the assist for Dan Burns' header down at Wembley as well. So it's good to have that as an outlet.
It was funny, by the way, when he ran over to take his first corner in the Brentford game. Everyone was like, "Burns up!" Everyone was just expecting Burn just to bury it.
You say that, but then he went to do it on the goal line. It was like, what's he doing?
Well, they had an actual centre half marking him, so it makes a big difference.
If someone over 3 foot tall marking him, that was the problem.
But yeah,
it's a good point about Trippier though, and solidifying that spot. I hadn't really considered it. The fact that Tino will be expecting that spot back, you kind of forget he's not really being the first choice right back. But I think it was really nice as well when Bruno was talking on the bus for the final fifth mention, when he was talking to Ant and Deck about how he'd learned so much from Bruno and how Bruno had learned so much from Trippier in terms of leadership and stuff like that. And that's the stuff that unless you're paying attention, you don't really realize how important that is. So keep him. I hope he's involved with the club for the next few years in some capacity because the bloke's a top pro.
Well, you mentioned Bruno, and obviously he's one piece of that midfield trio, Andy, of Bruno, Joel, and Tonali, and they're starting to get recognised outside of the Newcastle United bubble as just an absolute force to be reckoned with when it comes to just Premier League midfield as a set piece of three players, and being recognised probably in Europe as well as just how good they are. We wax lyrical about them on the Match Reaction, but you feel like they are the backbone, they are the spine of the the team at the minute who you kind of build everything else around. They're probably the first three names, apart from Alexander Isak, of course, on that team sheet every week for Eddie Howe when it comes to picking the squad. I mean, although he probably doesn't have much to pick at the moment because of the players that are, available to him. But, you'd expect they're the three. I've got them, and whoever else is around is whoever else is around. But, I mean, they've been outstanding, haven't they? Just the three of them, the way they cover each other, the way they, cover the back line, the way they press forward as a unit. It's just so nice to see, considering, what we all thought last season when we struggled to get Tonali and Tonali and Bruno playing together. Well, we thought it was going to be one or the other and who would be sacrificed and that sort of stuff. It's just the way it's all slotted together has just been so nice.
Yeah, that's the thing that's so strange is like it wasn't that long ago we were saying they couldn't play together. It was who do you play, Tonali or Bruno? We obviously had like a little demo disc of Tonali before his ban where he looks like quite a good player, but then it was almost like we were trying to sign Barella and we kind of took Tonali as a second option. But I think now you've got to give all credit to, all the recruitment team at Newcastle and how for, this is not to steal your point from the reaction because we made this point about adapting to the league and how, there's not that many Italians in the Premier League, despite them being such ridiculous footballers. But him in particular, he's adapted so well. He can do it. I mean, the whole midfield, when you look at it as a collective, they just can do everything together. You've got the ball-winning ability of Joe Linton, but a ball-winning player who can also run forward and shoot from distance and finish these days. Sometimes he's a bit streaky with his finishing still, but someone that can do that. And then someone who can also drop into left-back and drop into centre-half to win headers. And that ability, Bruno, who's won, 40 more fouls than anyone else in the league this season, can play ridiculous passes, can do the gritty stuff, can vamos the crowd and get the crowd going, because that's another thing that just is not really spoken about how much of a good leader he is as well. And then Tonali's kind of that more well-rounded version of all of them where he can do the run and he's got the pace, he's got the grit. And it's been good to see recently him show a bit more, not personality, but do you know what I mean? He's kind of shown his character a bit in terms of like, we're hearing him speak a bit more in the media. We're seeing him, sixth mention of the final, the chest bump with Willock in the corner, all that talk, all that nonsense earlier about how he's maybe not happy here or he was forced out. The bloke loves it here, you can tell. It's good to see him, more active on social media and stuff like that. So the three of them together, just ridiculous. And to think that we could potentially go into this summer and buy another midfielder as someone who can push them to be even better or to give us another kind of option. Because, there are times where the midfield's amazing, but we can get run through. And then to think we can also give him a right winger to pass to or another striking option or, more ball playing centre-half behind them to make it even easier for them. So the future's bright. 1-0 Leicester.
Daryl, just finally on the team and on the lineup before we move on to ref watching the predictions and stuff. Obviously, Harvey Barnes has come under a little bit of stick a bit this season, but since he's been, since Gordon's ban and his injury, whatever he's got at the minute, he's obviously came into the squad. He's done a really good job in doing what he's needed to do. He's paired up well with Tino Livramento on that left-hand side as well. We don't know yet if Gordon is fully fit or if he's going to be starting. I don't think Eddie Howe mentioned. I think he's only trained once or something since he's been back from England, so we wouldn't expect to. But is that another case of just like with Trippier at right back, where Harvey Barnes has now got that position to lose, or is it a case of as soon as Gordon's fit, he just kind of goes straight back into that position and he's the better player?
I suppose the only thing that's missing from Harvey Barnes' performances since he's come back into the team as a starter has been output. So assists and goals. If he could have added a goal or an assist or a bit of both.
He assisted one against Brentford.
Of course he did.
Scored against Brentford.
Easiest assist of his life for Tonali's goal.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like if he could have had a legitimate goal in those games, it would have been really good and it would have really helped him cement his argument to retain his place in the squad. And for what it's worth, I think if Gordon isn't fully fit going into the game on Monday, we'll probably see him on the bench and Barnes will start the game. I think we'll have to remember as well that Harvey Barnes is a former Leicester player, so there's some sentiment to him going to back to Leicester on Monday night. Harvey, this is a reminder that you need to put one in the net against Leicester if you're playing
and celebrate.
Remember and celebrate. Yeah, not an own goal, and remember to celebrate when you do it as well. But yeah, I mean, I like Harvey. I like what he can do, and I like, we've seen the flashpoints. We know he likes the screamer. We know he likes to bend it in the top corner. I like that in a player. I like a player that has that ability to do it. And when he gets a clean shot off, I mean, he doesn't just like feather it in. He absolutely wallops it, a bit like Sandro.
The whole front three like that. To be fair, they can all.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think he'll probably start on Monday, and if Gordon's anywhere near the squad, he'll be on the bench to come on later in the game.
I just feel a lot more comfortable with Barnes now. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think he obviously, it was hard for him because he was getting played out of position. He was going over to the right, and he played the last bit of the Brentford game on the right as well. And the people will just be thinking, for God's sake, I'm going to be over here again. But I was a bit worried when we obviously lost our whole left-hand side before the final, seventh mention. We obviously were a bit worried about obviously Hall, but then also losing Gordon. But Barnes has come in, and I wouldn't quite go as far as saying that he felt like a liability in the team, but he wasn't setting the world on fire by any means in that sort of period beforehand. But I just feel a lot more comfortable with him now. I don't know whether he's done some tactical work and he knows how to better get involved in the game and stuff like that more. But it could just be a confidence thing. I'm not really seeing him make many mistakes. I just think Gordon is one of these players who can just get involved out of absolutely nowhere, whereas I don't think Barnes is necessarily that player. But I agree with Daryl. I think he'll start. And, if you're chasing the game or if we're under the cosh a little bit and you can bring Gordon on, he would have been the perfect player to bring on in that Brentford game when we were really under the cosh. So it'll be good to have that option.
I think a big part of Harvey Barnes' game that goes really under the radar and nobody notices at all is he gets back and helps defensively as well. It doesn't get the recognition that maybe, I don't know if it deserves, but it does it a lot more than Gordon ever really would.
He's quite a strong lad, actually.
Really noticeable, yeah, and he's got a bit of beef behind him as well to wrestle a player off the ball if he needs to be as well. So yeah, it's on there. Right, that's enough about the teams. I mean, we all know who's going to play up front, so we're not even going to mention Alexander. That's a given.
Alexander Isak is good. Next point.
He's good. And what did Tolkien say today? You can't afford him. He doesn't want to come anyway, and if you could afford him, hands off. He's not selling them to you. So get away from him. He's all right,
George.
Aye. Daryl, mate, it's time for Ref Watch. Let me know who's the bloke in the middle and who's the man looking at the screens in Stockley Park.
Yeah. So man in the middle for the game on Monday is going to be Rob Jones from Merseyside. It's only his second Newcastle game of the season. His first one was the 2-1 win against Spurs at St James's Park all the way back when the League Cup wasn't even a thing in September. He was previously involved as a VAR official this season in the game where we lost 3-1 down at Fulham. And his stats for this season are 18 games refereed, 80 yellow cards, 4 reds, and he's awarded 4 penalties this season. VAR for the game will be Alex Chilowitz. Now, again, if you remember way back when, for his first VAR appointment, which was the home game against Fulham, which we lost 1-0, I told you he was from the good old... Aha, exactly. So,
thank you.
He was the VAR official for the first time way back in that game earlier this season from the good old US of A. He's done a lot of things in the Football League and he's been used quite a lot as a VAR official in Premier League games. And he was also VAR on the game for the 1-0 win down at West Ham, which was just before we won this over my shoulder. Was that 8 mentions now? Yeah. So they are the main men. Of course, we've got the assistants there as well, but the man in the middle and the VAR, that's your boys.
Anthony Horowitz.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost a horror show. Yes, there we go. Right, let's get on to our predictions. Do you know what? I'm going to give you mine first because I haven't been on these reviews for a couple of weeks because I've been away and stuff. Yeah, I'm going for a 3-0 win. I think we're going to come out the gates, hit them early, and then I just think we're going to be too much. And unfortunately, Leicester fans, if you still listen to this, I don't think you will be, but that's you getting in those record books, unfortunately. But yeah, 3-0. I think we're going to get an Isak brace. And then I think Harvey Barnes is overdue a goal. And I think he's going to get one against his prior club. So there we go. 3-0. And yeah, Isak 2, Tonali 1. Barnes one. Got Tonali in the mind. That goal is on repeat. And the noise it makes as well. What a thud. Anyway, Daryl, mate, what are you going for?
I'm going to go for 2-0. And again, obviously to us. Sorry, Leicester fans. I'm going to go with Harvey Barnes to get one. How are you, Harvey? Do the job. And Isaac as well, because he's just mint.
Nice.
Best striker in world football.
There we go. Andy, what we have?
I do think, to give Leicester fans a little glimmer of hope, I do think they'll score. I think they'll get a crap little consolation at the end. But I think 3-1. I think 3-1. I think the game will just be gone. It'll just be one of those stupid ones. Like, I can't remember the game it was where we stupidly it was the Brentford game in the cup when we just randomly conceded at the end or whatever it was. So yeah, the cup 9. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I think 3-1. I think Isak. I think the way Leicester defend, I just fancy them to give away a daft penalty because teams when they really struggle, they just stick a leg out, a lazy leg, but win a penalty. So I fancy Isak to get one at least. Barnes to get one, and then right at the end of the game, we'll let Anthony Gordon have one on the break, coming back into the team.
There you go.
Nice one.
Yeah, I was going to say Tonali's probably going to score from his own corner flag this time, but I think that's maybe too far-fetched, but we'll see what happens. Right then, there we go. That's our predictions. That's our match preview. How do you think the game's going to go? Let us know in the comments below. If you're a Leicester fan watching this, I'm sure you don't want that history, that record to be forever in your name, because I don't think many of the fact it's taken so long for it to even be this close, I don't think it'll happen again. So you'll have it for a while if you do make it. So let us know in the comments below how your season's going. I mean, I can probably guess, but please let me know. And what do you think the score's going to be? Let us know in the comments below. Anybody watching or listening, if you like this sort of content, hit the thumbs up button if you're watching on YouTube. It means the world to us, and it gets this video in the feeds of other people watching. While you're down there, if you want more content from this channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the little notification bell to be notified when new videos go live. And if you want to go one step further, you can become a member. It's $2.99 a month. That'll get you early access to videos like this one, as well as exclusive and early access to content throughout the season and also pre-season. We do stuff, throughout the year. And it also gets you access to the Telegram group, as well as we have a Discord server as well. So access to that as well. Boys, we've mentioned it 9 times, and I'm not leaving it on an odd number. So we won a cup.
That one there.
That one there. Don't mention it again. You can't leave on 11.
What happened a couple of weeks ago?
There's your 12, right. We will see us all in the next one. Let's get another 3 points on the board towards that all important now, because it's the only other thing we've got going at the minute. We're going for the league. We're gonna do the double. I mean, why not? We'll catch Liverpool by the end of the season. Fourth, fifth, or third. We'll take any of those. Champions League football is what we're aiming for. Let's do it. Let's finish this season on an even higher high than we're currently on. I don't even think it's possible, but let's get even higher than we are. Let's do it. We'll see you all in the next one.
Ta-ra.
Bye everyone. Ta-ra.